Danger Dolan. From expansion ideas scrapped following the Azeroth revamp to a playable race that just barely didn't make the cut, we count 10 features scrapped during the life of WoW that might have turned out kinda nice.
Number 10.
A Shara Crater suggested by Leaking Tit, a battleground planned since early vanilla WoW in which you have lanes like a MOBA match working similar to 40-man Alterac Valley. Later, we'd catch a glimpse of the already complete crater files data mined from the game, but in 2007 they decided it would not be added until Alterac Valley could be balanced. In 2009, for the Cataclysm announcement, it was revealed that lore-wise, the goblins had stripped the crater of resources to the point of oblivion. But then in 2011, a Shara Crater was one of the 3 battlegrounds considered to be added in Mr. Pandaria, but it just barely didn't make the cut. There's still a chance we'll see it, possibly in a future water-based expansion, hint hint.
Number 9.
The Emerald Dream, a rumored expansion set in the mysterious green fields of the Emerald Dream, an alternate version of Azeroth unaltered by intelligent beings. And so all the continents are merged into one huge supercontinent. The idea for this expansion has been around since before WoW was even released. It was originally supposed to be an endgame zone, but by 2007 it was scrapped as they had a whole expansion planned for down the road, even though art assets and terrain had been fleshed out. Blizzard considered making this an expansion several times, but at BlizzCon 2013, Chris Metzen flat out informed us that basing an entire expansion around lush green forest just isn't a good idea, so we'd likely see it as a raid or a dungeon or a subzone. I personally don't agree with this mindset because they made Northrend, which is supposed to be just an ice place, into a whole expansion, so why can't they do the same thing and just have a variety in the green landscape, have different colored areas? I do hope to see it one day.
Number 8.
So we have another topic from Leaking Tit. Azeroth Ner'zhul was probably the saddest scrapped feature for me. The whole idea of that zone sounded amazing. It was going to have a raid, it was going to be huge and very different from the other Northrend zones and anything we'd seen before. Okay, so Azeroth Ner'zhul was originally announced as the first underground subterranean zone in Wrath of the Lich King, but like with a lot of development, they had to choose which projects to prioritize and which ones to scrap, and sadly, Azeroth Ner'zhul did not make the cut. So lead content designer Corey Stockton noted, it was meant to have a look and feel very similar to Naxxramas, since the Scourge originally stole the architectural ideas from the underground Nerubians. Instead, they had to turn it into 2 separate 5-man dungeons. But since the underground caves are so rich in lore and so widely spread under Azeroth, it's possible it could return for a new expansion in a big way, possibly combining the rumored Dark Below with the ongoing threat of the Old Gods.
Number 7.
Ogres. The idea of these guys coming in as a playable race has been a long time coming. They've been around since Warcraft Orcs and Humans with a firm horde presence in the form of Stonemaul Ogres led by Rexxar. So why then aren't they playable? Well, the reality is they were heavily considered as a playable race for the Horde during the launch of Cataclysm, but they lost their place to the Goblins. No reason was given, but it is possible Blizzard realized people wouldn't want to play as fat stupid guys with a race of non-existent females. However, it is possible with the release of Warlords of Draenor that Blizzard are slowly reintroducing the ogres along with their storylines to get you ready for their appearance as a playable race at the start of the next expansion, but that is pure speculation.
Number 6.
Path of the Titans. Farahlon says a perk system that would allow for some more character customization beyond the scope of talents and glyphs. It was scrapped because reasons. So this was a feature planned and announced for Cataclysm in which you could continue to progress your character following max level, but it ended up getting shelved. The story went, this feature was inspired by the devastation caused by Deathwing, coupled with the recent influx in Titan discoveries such as Oldham, that cults would spring up all over Azeroth dedicated to unlocking their great power. It was like a mix between our current talent tree and glyphs, where you could follow the path of a specific titan and it would give you a choice between, say, 2 options, damage or bleed duration reductions for your character. It turned out though that it just didn't gel with the game. They weren't different enough from the introduction of glyphs, and they really didn't add anything to the game except more numbers to balance for each class. The idea of ability progression after you reach max level is intriguing though, and it would work well with the stat progression of traditional gear, so I do hope they give it another shot someday. Number 5. The South Seas. Once upon a time, there was a supposed leaked expansion list written during Vanilla WoW that detailed all expansions up to the Argus Burning Legion final expansion. Its authenticity has been called into question, but few can deny it accurately foretold everything up to Wrath of the Lich King, after which they went in a different direction, of course, with the Azeroth revamp, which nobody could have foreseen. It was originally meant to be the Maelstrom expansion with Gilneas, Kultiris, Kazan, and a raid on Zandalar. Basically, the South Seas, the only part of Azeroth canon to lore that hasn't been revealed yet. Obviously, bits and pieces of this theoretical expansion were saved, such as the Broken Isles, Grimbatol, and Gilneas. But the bulk of it was scrapped for Deathwing in the elemental planes like Deepholm, Skywall, and Firelands. My personal theory is that they bring it back in the inevitable Naga expansion with the Tomb of Sargeras and possibly underwater zones risen from the seafloor. Number 4. Aerial Combat. Farahlon once again says this was to be released alongside vehicle combat and to be used in Wintergrasp. Never made it into the game as it was deemed as unfun. The closest thing you can get is during the Goblin starting quest, where you have to shoot down Alliance planes from one of your own. It is really not a fun quest, all things considered, so I thank Blizzard for cancelling this one. So this was an announced feature for Wrath of the Lich King, even printed on the box as the expansion was shipped, but then scrapped and only brought back on occasion for some simple quests. Even though this could have easily been implemented at the time in large PvP zones like Wintergrasp, with vehicle construction bays already present for the siege tanks and all the rest, the fact is Warcraft with its engine at the time just couldn't do aerial combat to the point where it would be viable in PvP. Just look at the Oculus and how people couldn't stand learning a whole new rotation and flying around casting spells in a 3D hitbox when they're so used to land-based combat. Totally wonky, bullet impact delays, hitbox problems, a lot of the same issues as underwater combat. Their tech has very much improved since then though, and instead of improving this feature, they've outright removed flying from the world to encourage land-based PvP. It would have been nice to see them flesh out this aerial PvP, but for now, it doesn't seem likely that they're gonna bring it back. Number 3. The Dance Studio, infamously announced on the opening day of BlizzCon 2007 in the very first cinematic, a slide of new features coming in Wrath with the words "new dances" whizzing past. The barbershop was delivered so you can now change your hairstyles, but what about dances? It's revealed that Blizzard did indeed work on the Dance Studio, but it just barely didn't make it into Wrath. And though they had a huge number of new dances ready for the playable models, they then realized that new character models for Warlords of Draenor took precedence. What will likely happen is they'll reintroduce these new dances once the dust from Draenor has settled, as they've teased it at the BlizzCon announcement as a building for the garrison. Number 2. Abyssal More. Konak 1 says, the Abyssal More raid, no question. Everyone is still wondering what happened to Ozumat and Neptulon to this day. Blizzard could have implemented it in, like they'd done with Onyxia's Lair and Ruby Sanctum in Wrath, as mini raid patches, which was great at the time because you had lots of content you can run. This was a raid meant to coexist with Firelands as the so-called Fire and Water patch in the middle of Cataclysm, but things did not go as planned. The team spent so much time making Firelands into this huge epic raid tier that the side team responsible for whipping together existing Vashj'ir art assets looked like garbage compared to the flashy Firelands. Abyssal More also had the ongoing problem of underwater combat, as unlike Throne of the Tides, this one was set pretty much entirely underwater with raiders swimming around like they're inside the Oculus. So although the terrain files exist in WoW, Abyssal More just didn't meet their expectations and was scrapped. A shame, since the measly 7-boss Firelands raid tier simply wasn't enough at the time. Number 1. The capital cities in Warlords of Draenor. Here we go. An item that only springed up on this list in the last few days, prompting a huge backlash on the official forums, still going on right now. 2 major cities, Bladespire Citadel for the Horde and Karabor, the once Black Temple for the Alliance, currently scrapped as major cities to be replaced with generic human and orc camps just outside Ashran. Why is this a big deal? Well, both cities are more or less geographically complete on the Warlords Alpha build, and yet they've decided to scrap the idea of 2 major cities for apparently no reason. Community manager Law took to the forums to try and explain the rationale, but this only added fuel to the fire since his explanation had numerous holes. It's possible they might still reverse their decision, and if they do, then let this item on the list stand as a reminder to all you viewers out there that speaking up helps the devs understand your concerns. That is it for this countdown. Have a good one!